Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick.
I'm Ian.
Today we're talking about some of our favorite album covers. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So first album I have, it's not really, I guess the best way to put it is the album artwork isn't great. It's not like mind-blowing artwork. It just reminds me of a more simpler period from this band. And that is A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. And when I think of this, I just immediately think back of those early albums from the Beatles and them being on that Sullivan Show and all, them doing Help and all this other the movies that go along with the albums and all this really cool stuff that was really kind of revolutionary for bands in the early part of the 60s. And just looking at this album cover, it like I said, just immediately takes me back to that early period.
It's very much a snapshot of that era too, just in terms of it, the way it's put together.
Yeah. It's also one of my favorite albums from the Beatles.
It's a good album. My first one, I've probably talked about this album. It's one of my favorite albums by the band. It's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath. What really stands out, I mean, obviously the artwork is fantastic. It's very, painting-esque. But I've always liked the fact that it was like the front is the hell side, and then the back has the heaven side, the more angelic side. The contrast between the two sides that I think is pretty well represented on the album and the songs as well. But it's always been an album cover that really has stood out to me. I think it's Sabbath's best album cover, at least during the Ozzy years. Yeah. Dehumanizer would be the one for the Dio years for me.
The funny thing is about this album with me is I'm the same way. Like I remember seeing the album artwork and really loving the album artwork before I ever listened to the album.
Right.
I've always known the album artwork on the front. It was years before I realized that the back side was this like heaven side compared to the front side of it.
Well, and the funny thing is that when it was first released on CD, which was my first experience with it, because all I had was Paranoid on vinyl as a kid. So I had Sabbath Bloody Sabbath on CD. When you flip the CD cover over, it was just a black background with the song listing. This was on the inner sleeve, but it was small. CDs have that small, and it just wasn't a good representation. Until I saw it on vinyl, it was really where it stood out to me. The contrast, anyway. But the front was always been a key album cover for me. Yeah.
So the next album is kind of an interesting one because I don't remember the album artwork being this when it first got released. So the album is The Black Parade by Mychemic Romance. When the album came out in 2006, the album artwork was just a gray cover with like the one guy in the middle. It was kind of okay. Nothing really special. But I don't remember seeing this album artwork until it was reissued. I think it was 2015 when it got reissued, and that's when they did this album artwork. I guess the guy that did the artwork took some drawings from the lead singer and kind of built off of that, and then he created this. And this is a really cool piece of art. Just looking at it, it's especially 2006. I don't remember seeing a lot of albums have artwork like this that had been released over the last 20 years.
So my next one is a band I talk about all the time.
We can't have an episode
where I don't talk about Jeth Rell.
We don't talk about it all.
It's Broadsword and the Beast from 1982. I mean, you can look at it. This is a piece of art. The cover is a piece of art. And I didn't know this until just recently, but the guy who did the artwork for this, his name's Ian McKaig, has gone on to do concept art for Star Wars, Harry Potter, and the MCU.
Oh, that's cool.
So he's been around a long time, but he did this, and he actually, according to what I read on Wikipedia, because that's always accurate. Yeah. He put off a trip to Paris to propose to his girlfriend to do this album cover because he's such a big fan of the band. I love the album cover. I don't think it matches the music on the album.
No.
Some of it maybe a little, but not really. I think there's songs that have been made by Jeth Rell that would fit better with this particular album cover, but it's a fantastic album cover. Like I said, it's a piece of art. Jeth Rell or Ian Anderson is they're doing limited like poster prints of all the album covers. I haven't bought any of them, but I will be buying this one when it comes out.
The funny thing is about this album is I've never been a big fan of the album. It's definitely grown on me over the years. I've always been a huge fan of the artwork of the album, though. So the next one's kind of a cool album because when it was released in 1996, I don't remember what the big music store in the mall was in Ann Arbor, but I remember like walking into the music store and they had this gigantic picture of this album up on the wall.
Was it Sam Goody or FYE?
I don't remember which
I think
one
Sam Goody was in Southland and Briarwood had FYE.
Yeah. But I remember seeing it up on the wall and I was like, that's a cool album art. That's a cool album cover. I need to have that. It was on cassette at that time.
Right.
And that album is White Light, White Heat, White Trash by Social Distortion. This is the album that really got me into the band. It's not my favorite album by the band, but this is an album that I think some of their other albums get a lot more praise than this album does. And while this might not have songs like Ball and Chain on it, I think there's some tracks on here that are equally as great as that and some of the other big tracks from the band's career.
It's one of the few Social Distortion albums I've got on vinyl.
Yeah.
So, and not for any particular reason, it's just those are the only two I've found so far, but I do like the album artwork a lot.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's
cool.
kind of, the 90s were kind of the last era where album artwork meant something.
Yeah.
Because after 2000 and downloading started to take over, album artwork just wasn't as important.
Yeah.
So my next one, Nick and I kind of disagree a little on this. Not in the sense of it being good, but which one's better. But it's Pope Star by Ghost. I love this album cover. I know it's not as bright and vivid as some of their other stuff, but I like the concept of it. The chessboard and I don't know, it's just a really cool album cover. The artwork, Ghost is one of those bands that's kind of bringing that artwork back to records, I think. Kind of, harkening back to those early days when an album cover is what sold a record a lot of times. And this is actually just an EP for them. This wasn't even a full-length album. And to have that level of detail put into an EP, even back in the day, was kind of unheard of.
And then the last one I got is a classic album pick. I'm sure a lot of people out there will agree with this one. And that's Highway to Hell by AC/DC. This is the album artwork that I fell in love with before I'd ever heard the album. I remember like when I was younger, my parents weren't big into this kind of rock music, so they didn't have any AC/DC, but one of my friends, his dad was big into AC/DC, big into Motley Crue, and I remember like flipping through his dad's records one day, and I saw this album, and I was like, I don't know who these guys are, but
cool.
That's a pretty damn cool album cover.
Yeah, to me, kind of a similar thing. Not that I didn't know anyone who had the album, but it was one that if I saw it in the store, it always kind of stood out as a kid. Because I would wander off. It was the 80s. Our parents didn't care.
Yeah.
So my dad would take me to the record store, and he'd be looking, and I'd just be wandering around looking at records. It's like 4 or 5 years old, just flipping through. And this would always stand out to me. And as an adult, even more so, you put horns on anybody, devil horns on anybody, I'm sold. Musically, not so much, but on the image anyway.
Yeah.
So my last one is probably one of my favorite album covers of all of the 90s, in my opinion. And it's probably my top 10 albums of the 90s. And it's Throwing Copper by Live. I don't know anything about the album cover. I could have looked up the artist. I didn't. But even when this album came out, I knew nothing about the band. It's kind of a similar situation. This album cover is going to draw you in no matter what. Because it's so weird and abstract, and I love that kind of art anyway. It could have been done by Dolly almost. Maybe it's a little too straightforward for Dolly, but that's what it reminds me of.
It has Dolly elements.
Yeah, it's got that abstract weirdness to it that I love, and it just turns out that the album is, awesome. It's like I said, it could be probably a top 10 90s album for me for sure. So yeah.
The funny thing was, I completely forgot I even had this on vinyl. Until we were pulling stuff out for the episode, and I was like,
well, it's funny because
I guess I do. I
didn't have it in my head either, and then I went outside and I came back in. I was like, Live. It has to be Throwing Copper. It has to be on my list.
Yeah, it's a great one.
So, yeah, I would say none of their other album covers even hold a candle to this.
No.
And arguably maybe none of their albums musically, but this album cover's awesome.
cool.
It's probably, like I said, I would even put this above all the other ones that I even have in my list today. So,
well, that's all we got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop us a comment down below. I'd love to know what some of your favorite album artwork is. I could have went on a lot more than this. I narrowed it down for the episode today. Ian actually stole a couple of my some of the ones I was.
I just thought of another one. It's not even an album that I'm. It's not my kind of music, but Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style is a great album cover
that is,
too.
Yeah. I mean, the Chronic by Dr. Dre is another great one.
Yeah. So there's tons out there.
There's some really good rap ones. Now that you mentioned that, they're kind of popping in my head. But let us know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure if you see a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below. That's all we got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Keep on spinning. Peace.